this module, we continue talking about instruction, but the focus turns to consequences. Effective instruction includes effective responses to both correct and incorrect student responses. Feedback is an essential component of effective instruction. In fact, positive feedback is the most powerful intervention we know in terms of predicting future success. However, we can only use positive feedback when students have been successful, thus instruction must be the foundation for student success, allowing adults to use positive feedback. However, when considering the use of positive responses to behavior, even simple acknowledgement, there is an all too common misconception that this is not an effective practice. To be clear, the research is overwhelming in support of adults providing praise and other positive acknowledgement for positive behavior. Still, the conversation is likely to occur, so the team must be ready to address these misconceptions.
Flip side of looking at data and changing something, at our middle school we have 1,100 students, so we're one of the larger middle schools, and we noticed that looking at our referrals, it was a lot of repeat offenders, so we looked at it through a different lens and noticed that there were 875 students that had never received a referral. So we implemented a positive reward system, the positive celebration, where we took those students who had never received a referral and we did hip hop on the lawn, we just did fun activities for the second half of the day, and then the students who fell under the referral piece got a mentor. They went into mentor groups of what happened, how do you feel, and had more conversations about how they can have a better year in the next upcoming year.
Although positive reinforcement simply refers to anything done in response to a positive behavior that increases the likelihood of that behavior in the future, the term reinforcement tends to immediately bring to mind the delivery of candy, toys, and assorted other tangible items. While these are examples of positive reinforcement, the team needs to be clear that the most frequently used reinforcer across the school should be verbal acknowledgement. That is, just as we would say, "very well done" if a student got a math problem correct, we should say, "thanks for walking" when we see that behavior in the hallway.
We've changed our master schedule and changed some of the school-wide procedures as far as transitions and that kind of thing. We even changed when kids were getting intervention based on just kind of the atmosphere of the building at given times of the day.
We show them the data of especially our top flyers of kids who have been suspended over and over and over and over, and then they get in trouble again. So what are we going to do? We're going to suspend them. No, we have to come up with something else because they need to be in the classroom.
We have a hero system, so what we ended up doing was making that part of the expectation was one of our classroom expectations is you're on time. That's also another way that they could get a hero point. And then we used the hero system to track the tardies as well, the classroom tardies, because it's immediate, it's quick. They can't go to me and get a tardy and then go to Mr. Bryan and get a tardy, and then we don't know that they're already on their fourth tardy by the end of the day. The system prints out right away, and so we would put little messages on the tickets as well and say, this is your third tardy, this is your last warning.
At my school, the PBIS coach took main lead of Tier 2, Tier 3 kiddos, and Tier 1 really utilized your success coach. And then if there was a problem or tag teaming needed, the administration would work with the behavior coach.
Reinforcement is not an add-on for instruction. It is a crucial component. Consider teaching reading to students without ever telling them that they read correctly. It would be impossible to shape behavior without distinguishing between right and wrong, or correct and incorrect. At Tier 1, the distinction between correct and incorrect behavior is tied to the anchored rules that were taught and delivered primarily through naturalistic verbal acknowledgement. But as locations, behaviors, or times are identified as predictive of failure, verbal acknowledgements can be more targeted and increase in both intensity and frequency. For example, if data indicates that problem behaviors have increased in the hallway, stakeholders can agree to use more frequent verbal praise and to be more empathetic with the use of superlatives. thanks on an occasional basis may become, wow, thanks so much for remembering. You're awesome. In this way, feedback is made more salient while continuing with only verbal reinforcement. This is the manner in which positive feedback should be used for all students. Simple verbal acknowledgement constitutes the most basic level of reinforcement, and increasing its use is something that every adult in the school should consider as a personal goal. A second level of reinforcement involves the granting of small privileges to students in response to continued positive behavior. These privileges should be positive events built into the curriculum rather than additional activities. For example, the student who has completed his or her work may be given first choice of computer when going to the computer lab. Note that attendance in the computer lab was already going to happen and the student was already going to be working at a computer. The special privilege here is simply the ability to have first choice. Throughout the day, there are opportunities for stakeholders to use these type of privileges as a second level of acknowledgement. First in line and running errands for the teacher are generally effective with younger students, while choices about seating and first to lunch are more logical for older students. Again, the privileges are not something that are created. We use those that already exist and simply frame them as reinforcers by telling students they are being selected because of exemplary behavior. This level is especially effective with students who have historically not received a good deal of acknowledgement for success. A third level of positive feedback involves public acknowledgement of larger or more long-term behavior. Public acknowledgement should be simple and without expense for the school. This is simply a larger acknowledgement of behavior made in a very public manner, such as an award, a picture in the newsletter, induction into a Hall of Fame, or any other public acknowledgement of success.
Everybody did such a good job. I'm going to have to say the first table ready was the green table! Yay! Way to go!
This third level is especially helpful in acknowledging success among those who are typically the least successful students.
This morning is the best day of the week, and that's the day that we do our Star Student Recognitions, and it is so exciting. We recognize students that are elementary, middle, and high school who have epitomized our school-wide expectations this week.
And students, I know you've been missing out and missing our STAR students, and they are back today. STAR students, we've seen them all in the hallways, and we're going to announce our STAR students today.
Okay.
Good job, guys. High five.
Yeah.
Good job.
AZ is here.
Nice job, AC. Right. 1, 2, 3. I didn't get a high five from you, Leo. You got to get one down low when you're that tall.
Today's a special day. It is our MAP Growth and K-Prep Good Faith Effort celebration. It's important that we celebrate our kids not just at the end of the year, but every 6 weeks. That's our belief as a team, because I simply say everyone needs a carrot. Everyone needs something to look forward to, and if they know that goal, they work harder. And our academic growth this year has been awesome. We've not gotten state results back yet, but we're pretty excited. So this afternoon we're capping it off with the DJ, who was the brainchild of my students, because I asked them, what do you want? How do you want to celebrate K-Prep? They said, can we get a DJ? And can we have some food? So we're gonna have DJ Easy, who's with us today, and we're gonna have a series of some fun games getting staff and students involved.
PBIS is just recognizing positive behavior. What they're doing here at Newburgh is recognizing the positive behavior that the students have exhibited all school year, whether it be behavior, academic, building relationships. So this is just their way of recognizing them and rewarding them.
Ball's yours, ready? Play ball! Bump into somebody! That's what I'm talking about! Uh-oh! Uh-oh! Like a 10 men! It's a goal!
Newburgh has done a good job at recognizing kids every 6 weeks. This is their second pep rally, and as you see, the kids enjoy it. They get to be goofy, they get to be themselves, and they get to see the teachers and the adults act in a way that celebrates them as well.
There you go, Dion. Come on, 6th grade, cheer them on! Go, Tyler, you're almost there! Uh-oh, we got a struggle over here. Now we got 35 people working on Miss Bishop. Dion's getting close. Tyler's getting close. Tyler must be dizzy. Tyler's dizzy. It's easy!
So the main thing with culture is building relationships. So what they're doing right now is building relationships with the students, giving them a sense of belonging. And so by doing that, it completely changes the feel and the culture of the building to where when a visitor comes in, they feel welcome, they feel the love, and they feel the energy in the building.
Often, stakeholders will be concerned that increasing verbal acknowledgement for all is in some way unfair to students who were behaving correctly all along. The use of public acknowledgement allows for the most successful students to achieve another level of reinforcement. In addition, it can be a goal for students who have not yet reached this level. Frequently, PBIS schools use tokens or tickets as a part of their Tier 1 acknowledgement system. This is not a problem unless this fourth level is used without the previous 3 levels of acknowledgement. To keep it simple, token reinforcement is probably best reserved for those times or situations in which the previous 3 levels of acknowledgement have proven insufficient in encouraging positive behavior. For example, because of reoccurring noise problems in the hallway, the school may decide to introduce tickets for appropriate voice level in the hallway during afternoons. In this way, the tickets have the maximum effect on a very specific behavior. This will be more effective than simply having tickets available to all students for all behaviors every day for the entire year.
So one of the things that I did in my classroom, and then it became sort of a school-wide thing, and now as I am in coaching positions and consultant teacher positions, I've taken that with me, is just sending home a postcard, like a positive postcard. And it's not something that the kid even realizes they're getting. So what I did every single day I wrote a postcard home to one of my students. And it wasn't always the high flyer student, it was just the student that I noticed that was having a really good day or did a really good job or helped somebody do something. And then once a week I would pick my sort of, positive person of the day or the week, and I had enlarged the postcard and I would just go buy a candy bar or something, and I know it's tangible, but the kid didn't. I think what made it non-tangible in my mind is that the kids had no idea I was doing that. So they weren't working for this at all. Like, it was just something that I was doing to recognize them in a positive way. And I would send them home all the time. And then when I started working as a behavior coach, that was the very first thing that I started doing. And the first year we sent over 800 home. And then the next year I ordered 2,000 and we ran out. So teachers were starting to see that it was making an impact because these kids didn't realize it wasn't something they were working for. It wasn't like a token of kindness. They weren't trying to earn something. It was just they were being noticed.
Something that our students and our families absolutely love is we've created PAW, because we have the PAW positive postcards. And when our teachers see something that our students are doing excellent, it has to be above and beyond, they send home a postcard to the child's family, or to the child, and the family gets to read it and they love it.
In my middle school, one of the things that I started using and then encouraged other teachers to use was allowing students who had done a good job or that had met expectations to eat lunch in my classroom. So over the course of the last year, I probably had an empty classroom during lunchtime maybe 10 times for the whole year.
I feel like anytime, that's something I really kind of underestimated, the power of a picture. We do Hero of the Month, 2 from each grade level. And one of my students got Hero of the Month in December, and I will never forget this. He asked me every morning, well, when are you taking those down before we go to break? Because usually I do it at the change of the next month. And every day, can we go take those down? And he hung it above his bed. And his mom, when I talked to her at the end of the year, she said, do you know that thing, it was laminated, is peeling all over the place, but he has taped it up there and it is still above his bed. And it's just the power of a picture. He had never gotten public recognition before, and so that will always live with me,
We asked the kids, if you were to reach these levels, what types of rewards would you want? And you would be amazed that in high school, the #1 request was a positive phone call made home by their AP.
One thing that we did at my school Let's just think about that tier 2 and tier 3 kids that's always in your office, always in the classroom getting in trouble. And every time they get that phone call home of saying they did this when they shouldn't have. And then all of a sudden surprising their parents with a phone call saying, hey, I just want to let you know that Johnny did great today. And we actually have him on speakerphone and just seeing that interaction when the kid smiles cheek to cheek, and then the parent on the phone say, when you get home, we're gonna have a bag of chips for you, or we're gonna buy this new video game. Kids thrive off of hearing parents say, good job.
I had a related arts teacher, a band director, who started recognizing some positive things and behaviors in students, who started taking the old traditional disciplinary referrals and writing the student's name in there and writing about the good thing they did, sending it down to me, the assistant principal. And that gave me an opportunity to call that student down to talk about that referral and make a phone call home. But it was a different take on using the same system we used for negative consequences to give this kid some praise. So I would get this student in my office and get to tell them, well, your teacher said that you've been practicing very hard, you've made a lot of improvement in this area and all, so I think we need to make a phone call home and let your parent know what's going on.
As we all know, despite our best efforts, there will always be students who misbehave, and effective instruction requires that we respond with corrective feedback. Again, without feedback for both correct and incorrect behaviors, students would not be able to discriminate between the two. However, whereas positive feedback indicates that intervention is working, the need for negative feedback indicates that the intervention is not effective. If we use office discipline referrals as an indicator of behavioral failure, increased referrals for any time, location, behavior, or student is an indicator that intervention is not working and must be revised. Technically, negative feedback is a punishment. Most people think of punishment as something more unpleasant, but punishment simply refers to anything done in response to a behavior that decreases the likelihood of that behavior in the future. Negative feedback means the same thing, but seems to be more palatable than the word punishment, so it is recommended. The team's role is to help the school determine logical and consistent consequences for typical misbehaviors. As a first step, distinctions need to be made between those behaviors requiring administrative action and those that are handled by the faculty or staff who witness it. Many schools make these distinctions formal by creating a flowchart or graphic. Notice in this flowchart that the first decision is in regard to whether the misbehavior should be managed by a person observing it or sent directly to an administrator. If the behavior is to be handled by the person observing it, there are a set of prompts indicating levels of responses that should be implemented, with specific examples provided to lead less experienced staff. Second, the flowchart contains an exception to the teacher-managed rule. If the same teacher has provided 3 responses for the same behavior without success, then the incident may be referred to an administrator. Effective consequences for negative behavior are delivered immediately, consistently, and in a neutral manner. Anger or disgust are not helpful in this process.
So we want to do as many things as we possibly can in Tier 1 to set those kids up for success, right? And we've got a lot of things in place, but we know that there are going to be times when those things are not going to work and we're going to need to support a student in other ways. So we have a very systematic flow chart for what we do with students if they're struggling. You have a positive behavior intervention and support flow chart for what we do at Shacklet. I want you to take a minute and kind of review that. Look at it, look at the different levels. What constitutes a level 1? What constitutes a level 2? What's a level 3? What is a level 4? And what is a level 5? And what might happen for those different behaviors at the different levels. Just kind of look at it, review it. We want everyone to be very familiar with our PBIS procedures.
For some reason, we adults are conditioned to think punishment first, and this is something that must be addressed. Everything we know from a science of behavior shows that positives are more effective in changing behavior.
I think that's really key, communicating to teachers that, okay, let's think about a student who has never been successful in a class. They're not going to probably just sit down and magically one day say, okay, I'm going to be successful, and I think we can compare that to adults, that if they've had a challenging class, if they've never felt success with that class, it's not magically going to turn around. So, you know, going into their classrooms and co-teaching and helping support them to have a successful class, and once they see how it can be, I think it's really hard to turn back around. But I definitely think there has to be some systematic steps to getting supports in there, so they can experience what we want them, you know, to experience.
Too often, consequences are preconceived without consideration of how they might affect behavior. For example, schools often use detention as a standard consequence for behavior. However, if the student hates being in the classroom, removal to a place without demands will increase the behavior that promotes that escape. In effect, the wrong consequence for misbehavior may not only be ineffective, it may actually make things worse. Because we know that removing students from the classroom is not an effective deterrent to misbehavior, the team must help the schools to consider a range of effective responses. There will be a few adults who have no idea how to handle simple situations such as students bringing food to class or not putting their backpacks away. The team presents each of the teacher-managed misbehaviors and asks all stakeholders for suggestions of simple responses. As a range of experienced teachers speak up and give their suggestions, the team develops a list of simple strategies that can be supplied to all stakeholders. For those who have no other less severe responses in their bag of tricks, this discussion serves as a training of sorts, alerting them to alternatives. Remember, consequences are part of instruction, but not all consequences are equally effective. The big idea is that prevention is based first and foremost on instruction, setting us up to use more positives than negatives. Before moving on to the next module, there are a couple things that should be considered as a PBIS team or as a school. First, how will you present the logic for providing positive acknowledgement as a critical strategy inherent in instruction? Second, what kinds of acknowledgements can you brainstorm that can be used by everyone at no cost? And finally, how can you get your faculty to discuss a range of simple consequences for misbehavior that do not include student removal from the setting?